I didn't fall in love with her the day she saved me. I fell in love with her the moment I realized she was watching me long before I ever stepped into the water. The sun was already high when I arrived at the pool that summer morning, the kind of sun that presses into your skin and makes everything feel louder. Your thoughts, your memories, the parts of you you're trying not to think about. I had come to escape from work, from the noise in my head, from the quiet apartment that reminded me too much of what I didn't have. I remember adjusting my towel, pretending not to notice her at first. She stood near the lifeguard chair, red swimsuit catching the light, whistle resting against her chest. Calm, focused, grounded in a way I hadn't felt in years. She scanned the pool with steady eyes, but every so often, just for a second, I felt them land on me. Not like she was checking rules, like she was checking me. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Lifeguards watched everyone, that was the job. Still, when our eyes met for the first time, something in my chest tightened. Not fear, recognition. I slipped into the water slowly, letting the coolness wrap around me. I wasn't a strong swimmer, never had been, but that morning I wanted to feel weightless. I wanted the world muted, even if just for a few minutes. What I didn't know was that while I was trying to disappear underwater, she was already paying attention to the way I moved, the hesitation in my strokes, the way I stayed close to the edge. And when I finally drifted too far, when my breath caught and panic crept in, it wasn't the water that overwhelmed me. It was the sudden realization that she was already moving toward me. Strong arms, steady hands, a voice calm enough to pull me back into myself. "I've got you," she said. And for the first time in a very long time, I believed someone. Her name was Lena. I learned it later from the way another lifeguard called out to her across the deck. Lena laughed easily, like she wasn't carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, like she belonged exactly where she was. After she helped me to the side of the pool, she stayed close, not hovering, not making a scene, just enough to let me know she hadn't forgotten about me. "You okay?" she asked, crouching slightly so we were eye level. I nodded, embarrassed. "Yeah, I just misjudged the distance." She smiled, gentle, not teasing. "It happens more than you think." There was something about the way she spoke, unrushed, sincere, that made my chest loosen. She handed me a towel even though I hadn't asked for one. "Take it easy today. No pressure to prove anything." I wanted to tell her that proving things was all I'd ever done, at work, in relationships, in life, but instead I just nodded again. "Thank you," I said. She hesitated for half a second, then added, "I'll be right here." And she was. Every time I glanced up from my chair, she was back at her post, eyes moving across the pool, but somehow always finding me. Not staring, just present. That presence stayed with me long after I left the pool that day. I came back the next morning, and the next. At first, I told myself it was for the exercise, the fresh air, the routine. But if I was honest, I timed my visits around her shifts. I learned when the sun hit the water just right, when the pool was quieter, when the world felt smaller. We started talking in pieces, short exchanges at first. "How's your shoulder today?" "Better." "You're swimming farther now." "Still staying close to the edge." "That's okay." Nothing personal, nothing dangerous, until one afternoon when the pool was almost empty and the heat made everything feel slower, she sat down at the edge near me. "You always come alone," she said casually. It wasn't an accusation, just an observation. "So do you," I replied, surprising myself with the softness in my voice. She smiled, shakily. "Work doesn't leave much room for company." "Neither does life," I said before I could stop myself. Her expression shifted then, not dramatically, but enough that I knew she'd heard me. "What do you do?" she asked. "I work in an office, lots of screens, lots of noise." "Sounds exhausting." "It is." She nodded, understanding in a way that felt earned, not assumed. "This place helps me breathe," she said, gesturing to the pool, "even on the hard days." I looked at the water, shimmering between us. Me too. That was the first moment I felt the quiet pull, the sense that something was forming without either of us pushing it. We didn't talk about relationships or pasts or why two grown women were finding comfort in a shared silence by a public pool. We just existed there, summer wrapping around us like a secret. The day everything changed didn't start dramatically. No storm, no warning, just a crowded pool and a heat wave that made everyone restless. I'd swum farther than usual that afternoon, encouraged by weeks of growing confidence. But confidence isn't the same as strength, and when my muscles gave out, panic rushed in faster than I could control. I remember water filling my ears, the blur of blue. And then, hands. Firm, certain. She pulled me up with a strength that startled me, guiding me back to the edge, one arm steady around my back. "Hey," she said, close this time. "Breathe with me." I did. Her face was inches from mine, eyes locked onto mine like an anchor. The noise around us faded. "You're safe," she said quietly, and something inside me cracked open. Not because I'd almost drowned, but because in that moment I realized I trusted her completely. Afterwards, she walked me to a shaded bench, sat beside me longer than protocol probably allowed. Her knee brushed mine once, accidentally. Neither of us moved away. "You scared me," she admitted softly. "I scared myself," I replied. She studied my face, like she was deciding something. Then she said, "You don't have to push yourself for anyone." I swallowed. I don't know how not to. Her voice dropped. "You can learn." The way she said it wasn't a promise. It was an invitation. And as the sun dipped lower and the pool lights flickered on, I realized I wasn't just coming here to swim anymore. I was coming because somewhere between water and silence, I was starting to fall.
The pool changed after that day. Not in ways anyone else would notice. The water was still blue, the deck still smelled like sunscreen and chlorine, kids still laughed too loudly, parents still argued over floaties and snacks. But for me, everything felt sharper. Every sound, every glance, every moment I knew she was nearby. Lena didn't treat me differently after she pulled me out of the water. That might have been the hardest part. She didn't hover or lecture or act like my fear had made me fragile. If anything, she trusted me more. She watched, yes, but with confidence, not concern. And somehow that made me want to be braver. I practiced swimming at the shallow end when she wasn't looking, pushing myself slowly, counting breaths. I wanted to feel capable, not for her approval, but because she had made me believe I could be. We talked more now, not in dramatic confessions or obvious flirtation, just pieces, fragments of real life exchanged in quiet moments. She told me she'd grown up near the ocean, learned to swim before she could ride a bike, that water had always been the one place where her thoughts slowed down. I told her I'd moved here after a breakup that left more questions than answers, that I liked routines because they didn't expect much from me. She listened without interrupting, without fixing. One afternoon she asked, "Do you ever feel like you're holding your breath even when you're not underwater?" I laughed softly, surprised. "All the time." She nodded. "Me too." That was when I realized she wasn't just calm, she was aware. There were rules, of course. I knew them even if no one said them out loud. Lifeguards didn't get involved with patrons, lines weren't crossed, boundaries existed for a reason. But boundaries don't disappear all at once. They thin, they blur, they stretch in the space between glances and unfinished sentences. Sometimes, after her shift ended, she'd sit at the far edge of the pool with her feet dangling in the water. I'd sit a few feet away, pretending to scroll my phone, aware of the way our presence filled the space. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the pool emptied, she asked, "Why do you come here every day?" I hesitated, then answered honestly, "Because this place feels quiet and safe." She looked at me, something unreadable passing through her eyes. "Yeah," she said, "I get that."
She didn't say, "I make it safe." She didn't need to. The first time I noticed the way she looked at me, it startled me, not because it was intense, but because it was restrained, careful, like she was constantly choosing not to cross a line. It happened one afternoon when I stood up from my chair to leave. I'd thrown on a light dress over my swimsuit, still damp, hair pulled back lazily. I felt her gaze before I saw it. She looked away immediately, not guilty, not flustered, intentional. My chest tightened in a way that had nothing to do with fear. That night, lying in bed, I thought about her more than I meant to. The sound of her voice, the steadiness of her hands, the way she never asked for more than I was ready to give. I hated how much that mattered to me. Things shifted again the day I stayed late. The pool was closing early for maintenance, and most people had already left. I lingered, reluctant to go back to my quiet apartment just yet. Lena finished her rounds, checked the gates, then walked over to me. "You don't have to leave right away," she said. "I'll be here for a bit." "I know, I just don't want the day to end yet." She considered me for a moment, then said, "There's a bench by the far fence. It's quieter there." We sat side by side, the sounds of the city distant, the sky turned soft shades of pink and orange. Our shoulders brushed once. Neither of us moved. "You ever wish summer lasted longer?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "Sometimes, but I've learned not to rush it." I looked at her. "How do you do that?" She shrugged. "I pay attention to what's real while it's here." Her words settled into me like something fragile. The night I realized I was falling wasn't dramatic. No lightning, no confession, just a moment. I stood up to leave, and she stood too. For a second, we faced each other in the dimming light, close enough to feel the warmth between us, close enough to notice her breathing change. "Be careful going home," she said. "You too," I replied automatically. We didn't hug, didn't touch, but when I walked away, I felt the pull of her presence like gravity, and I knew. This wasn't just admiration. This wasn't gratitude. This was something deeper, something dangerous. I started pulling back after that, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to. I came to the pool less often, left earlier, kept conversations lighter, safer. Lena noticed. She didn't confront me, she didn't push, but one afternoon, as I gathered my things, she asked, "Did I do something?" The question hit harder than I expected. "No, of course not." She searched my face. "Okay." But her voice held doubt. I wanted to tell her everything, about the way my chest tightened when she smiled, about the way I replayed our conversations at night, about how terrifying it felt to want someone who existed in a space I wasn't sure I was allowed to enter. Instead, I said nothing, and that silence stretched longer than I meant it to. The breaking point came on a Saturday afternoon. The pool was crowded, loud, chaotic. I was in the water when I saw her laugh at something another woman said, one of the other lifeguards. It shouldn't have mattered, but it did. A sharp, unfamiliar jealousy flared in my chest. I swam to the edge, heart racing, confused by the intensity of the feeling. Lena noticed immediately. She came closer, lowering her voice. "You okay?" I nodded, then shook my head. "I think I should go." She followed me a few steps away from the pool, expression concerned. "Talk to me." I looked at her then, really looked, and realized I couldn't keep pretending. "I'm not good at this, at whatever this is." Her voice softened. "We don't have to label it." "That's the problem. I already have." She froze. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said, very carefully, "I don't want to hurt you." "I know. That's why I'm scared." She exhaled slowly. "Then let's slow down." I nodded, relief and disappointment mixing in my chest. But as I walked away, one thought stayed with me, clear and undeniable. Slowing down didn't mean stopping. It meant we were both choosing to feel it.
Slowing down didn't make the feeling disappear. It sharpened it. Every time I decided not to go to the pool, I found myself thinking about her anyway. Every quiet evening stretched too long. Every night ended with me replaying moments I pretended didn't matter. And every morning, somehow, my feet carried me back. Lena didn't ask why I'd pulled away. She didn't make jokes to ease the tension. She simply adjusted, standing a little farther when we talked, keeping conversations neutral, professional. That distance hurt more than I expected. It made me realize something uncomfortable. I hadn't just been reacting to her attention. I'd been depending on it. The pool felt colder without the quiet comfort we'd built. I stayed closer to the shallow end again, not because I was afraid of the water, but because I was afraid of what I felt standing too close to her. One afternoon, after a long silence between us, she said, "You don't look like yourself lately." I forced a smile. "I'm fine." She nodded, but her eyes didn't believe me. That night, I dreamed of water rising, not drowning me, just surrounding me, and every time I turned, she was there, watching, waiting, saying nothing. Things changed the day the storm came. Summer storms always arrived suddenly here. One moment the sun burned high, the next the sky cracked open without warning. Thunder rolled in fast, sending families scrambling, umbrellas opening too late. The pool cleared quickly. Lena moved with practiced efficiency, guiding people out, locking gates, securing equipment. I waited under the small covered area near the fence, rain cooling the air around us. When the last gate clicked shut, she leaned against the post, hair damp, breathing steady. "You can wait it out. It won't last long." I nodded. "I don't mind." We stood there, the space between us filled with rain and unspoken thoughts. The world felt smaller, contained in that narrow shelter. "You've been quiet," she said. "So have I." She smiled faintly. "I didn't want to make you uncomfortable." That honesty caught me off guard. "You don't," I said quickly. Then, more slowly, "You just make me think." "About what?" I hesitated. "About things I usually avoid." She studied my face, rain dripping from her hair. "Sometimes avoidance hurts more than honesty." The thunder cracked again, closer this time. My heart matched the rhythm. "Lena," I said softly, testing her name like something fragile. She looked at me fully then. No distance, no restraint. "Yes?" I swallowed. "I don't know how to be casual about this." Her breath changed. Neither do I. The silence between us stretched, not awkward, not forced, charged. Then she stepped back, not away from me, away from the edge. "We should keep this safe, for both of us." I nodded, even though part of me ached. "I know." But knowing didn't stop the feeling. After the storm, things didn't return to normal. They deepened. She noticed things others wouldn't, when I looked tired, when my shoulders tightened, when I stayed too long staring at the water without swimming. One evening, as the pool lights flickered on, she handed me a bottle of water. "You forget to hydrate," I replied, half teasing. She didn't smile. "I worry." That word sat heavy between us. I wanted to ask her why. I wanted to ask if she worried like this about everyone. Instead, I said, "You don't have to." She looked away. "I know." The jealousy surprised me again the day a man lingered near her chair. He was harmless, friendly, too comfortable. I told myself it didn't matter, told myself I had no claim, no right, but when he laughed too loudly at something she said, my chest tightened in a way I couldn't ignore. I left early that day. At home, I paced my apartment, annoyed with myself, with the situation, with how quickly something so quiet had taken root inside me. My phone buzzed. A message from Lena. Did I do something wrong today? I stared at the screen longer than necessary. No, I typed, then erased it. I left because I needed space, I finally wrote. Her reply came a minute later. Okay, I'm here when you want to talk. No pressure, no guilt, just presence. That broke me more than anything else could have. We finally crossed the line on a night that felt almost ordinary. The pool was nearly empty, the air warm, cicadas humming in the distance. I sat at the edge, feet in the water, not swimming, just thinking. She finished her shift and came over quietly, sitting a little farther than usual. "You didn't swim today," she said. I didn't feel like pretending. She nodded slowly. Me neither. I looked at her then, really looked, the woman who'd steadied me, who'd seen through me, who had never once asked me to be someone else. "I don't want to lose this," I said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Neither do I. But I also don't know how to keep it like this. She turned toward me, eyes steady. Then don't pretend it's nothing. My breath caught. "I don't want to hurt you," she added. I met her gaze. "I'm already here." The space between us closed, not quickly, not dramatically, just enough. She didn't kiss me. Instead, she reached out and rested her forehead gently against mine. The contact was soft, controlled, electric. For a moment, the world disappeared. No rules, no fear, just breath and warmth and the truth we'd been circling. When she pulled back, her eyes were dark with something she hadn't allowed herself before. "This changes things," she said. "Yes," I replied, "but pretending it doesn't won't protect us." She exhaled slowly. "Then we move carefully." I nodded. But deep down, I knew something had already shifted. There was no going back to the water the way it used to be. Because now, I wasn't just swimming. I was choosing how deep I was willing to go.
After that night, everything felt louder. Not in sound, but in meaning. Every glance lingered longer. Every pause carried weight. Even silence had a shape now. I noticed how often Lena watched the gate, how carefully she chose where to stand when other people were around. I caught myself doing the same, measuring distance, timing my steps, adjusting my voice. We hadn't said what we were, but we both knew what we weren't anymore. The pool stayed busy as August deepened. Families returned, kids laughed, music played softly from someone's phone. Life continued as if nothing fragile was unfolding right beneath the surface. But it was, and summer has a way of exposing things you try to keep hidden. The first moment of real fear came unexpectedly. I was floating on my back, eyes closed, letting the water hold me, when I heard someone call my name from the edge. Not Lena's voice. I sat up quickly. It was Marissa, a woman I barely knew, mid-30s, sharp smile, always watching more than speaking. I'd seen her around the pool before, usually with friends, sometimes alone. "Didn't mean to startle you," she said lightly. "You come here a lot." "So do you," I replied, keeping my tone casual. Her eyes drifted, not to me but to Lena, who stood across the pool adjusting equipment. "You two seem close," Marissa said. The words were simple, the implication wasn't. I forced a shrug. "She's the lifeguard." Marissa smiled, slow and knowing. "Right." That was it. She didn't say more. She didn't have to. The rest of the day, my skin felt tight, like I was wearing something that didn't quite fit anymore. When I told Lena later, her expression changed. Not panic, not anger, just awareness. "We need to be careful," she said quietly. "I know." She hesitated. "This place, it notices patterns." "So do people," I said. Her jaw tightened slightly. "I won't let this hurt you." The certainty in her voice made my chest ache. "I don't need protection. I need honesty." She nodded. "Then we need boundaries." The word felt like a loss, but we both knew it was necessary.
Boundaries didn't make things easier, they made everything sharper. She stopped sitting beside me, I stopped staying after closing. Our conversations shortened, our laughter softened, everything felt filtered. And still, nothing disappeared. I felt her presence even when she wasn't near, felt the echo of her touch long after it ended. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the pool glowed gold, I watched her help a child practice floating. Her voice was calm, steady, reassuring. I realized then what I loved most wasn't the tension, it was her gentleness. That realization terrified me. The breaking point came the night the pool hosted a small summer event. Lights strung across the fence, music low and warm, laughter floating through humid air. Lena wore a different uniform, still professional but softer, less shielded. I caught her watching me across the crowd, her expression unreadable. Then I saw someone else watching too, Marissa. She approached Lena easily, leaning in too close, speaking low. Lena listened politely, stepping back when she could. Something twisted in my chest, not jealousy exactly, fear. I turned away. Later, as the crowd thinned, Lena found me near the shallow end. "Are you okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Just tired." She hesitated. "Marissa asked me something earlier." I looked at her. What did she ask? If we were involved. The world stilled. "And?" I asked, my voice barely steady. I told her no, Lena said immediately, that it wasn't appropriate. Relief hit first, then something heavier. "She didn't believe you," I said. Lena didn't argue. "She said she'd noticed the way you look at me and the way I watch you when I think no one sees." Heat rushed to my face. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," she said softly. "We didn't do anything wrong." "But perception doesn't care about truth," I replied. She exhaled. "I know." We stood there, the pool reflecting light between us, the space suddenly fragile again. "I don't regret this," I said. Her eyes softened. "Neither do I. But we have to decide what comes next," I added. "Yes," she agreed, "because summer doesn't last." That night, sleep didn't come easily. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about endings, about how everything beautiful feels temporary once you start naming it. I thought about walking away, protecting us both, and then I thought about how empty that choice felt. The next day, I didn't go to the pool. The day after that, I went, but stayed far. Lena noticed. She always did. On the third day, she met me by the gate before I could leave. "Please don't disappear," she said quietly. "I don't want to make this harder," I replied. "You already make it easier," she said, "just by being here." I searched her face. "What happens when summer ends?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "We stop pretending this is only about summer." The truth in her voice landed heavy and hopeful all at once. The decision came unexpectedly. A notice posted near the office, seasonal staffing updates, shifts changing, contracts ending soon. Lena's position was temporary. So was my time here. The realization sat between us when I told her. "I didn't want to burden you with this," I said. "You're not. You're giving me clarity." "About what?" She took a breath. "About what I'm willing to risk." My heart pounded. "And what is that?" She looked at me, fully, openly, without restraint. "Losing comfort," she said. "Not losing you." I felt something break open inside me. The fear didn't vanish, but something stronger took its place. Choice. We didn't kiss that night. We didn't need to. Instead, we walked the long way around the pool, side by side, close enough to feel each other's warmth. Summer was watching us now, and it wasn't asking for permission, it was asking for honesty.
The last week of summer arrived quietly. No announcement, no warning, just shorter evenings and air that felt slightly cooler when the sun dipped below the trees. The pool emptied earlier now. The laughter softened. The season that had held us suspended began to loosen its grip.
Lena and I didn't talk about endings right away. We didn't need to. Every moment felt deliberate now. Every glance carried awareness instead of uncertainty. We had crossed the place where pretending was possible, and there was relief in that honesty. One evening after the pool closed, we sat together on the concrete steps near the water. No uniforms, no expectations, just two women watching reflections move gently across the surface. I used to think saving people meant pulling them out, Lena said quietly. But sometimes, she added, it means letting them decide when they're ready to swim on their own. I looked at her. You didn't save me. She met my gaze. No, you did that yourself. The words settled deep in my chest. The next day I didn't come to the pool, not out of fear, but intention. I needed to know if what I felt could exist outside this place, outside the water, outside the safety of shared routine. That night I walked along the path behind the complex, the one that overlooked the pool from a distance. The lights were on, shimmering softly. Lena was there, finishing up. She saw me immediately, not surprised, not hesitant, just present. I wondered if you'd come, she said as she walked toward me. I needed to choose, I replied. She didn't interrupt. I didn't want this to be something that only lived in summer, or only by the water, or only when it was easy. Her voice was steady. And what did you decide? I stepped closer, not rushed, not uncertain. I decided I don't want to disappear from my own life anymore. She breathed out slowly, like she'd been holding that breath for a long time. Neither do I. We didn't kiss right away. Instead, she took my hand, open, unhidden, right there under the pool lights. People passed by. Cars moved in the distance. Life continued. And for the first time, we weren't trying to stay invisible. I can't promise certainty, she said. I'm not asking for that, just honesty. She nodded. I can do that. The simplicity of it almost made me cry. The last day the pool was open, we stood side by side at the edge. I didn't swim. Neither did she. We watched the water move, quiet and reflective. This place gave us space, I said. She smiled. But it doesn't get to decide what we do with it. When the lights shut off and the gates closed, something didn't end. It began. Weeks later, summer had officially faded. The pool was empty now, covered, still. But I wasn't. Lena and I learned how to exist without the excuse of proximity. We learned how to speak plainly, how to take things slowly without hiding, how to choose each other without fear disguised as caution. I didn't drown in her eyes after all. I learned how to breathe. And she didn't save me from the water. She stood beside me while I learned how to swim on my own.